Hello, gorgeous people. I have a fun new video for today. 5 songs that didn't age well. This list is not in any particular order. Quick disclaimer. No surprise that the general theme here is going to be about underage girls and the use of drugs. If that bothers you, please, you do not need to watch this video. I understand that this is a sensitive topic, particularly to survivors of SA and those in recovery. Please keep the comments respectful. Also, to clarify, I'm not bashing the artist of these songs, even though one of them is completely trash. I'm gonna center myself the best that I can here. I'm just criticizing the fact that these songs came into fruition in the first place. Either way, I found all of this interesting as I was trying to look up as much as information as I can. I even corrected myself on the history of one of the songs, so I'm kind of glad on that. Also, one last thing, keep the comment section as respectful as you can. I know there's a lot of things that people are gonna disagree on. We can disagree on them respectfully. So like, there's absolutely like no sense to like call other people names and whatnot. However, we can also call out people for the shit that they've done. But you know, you can use facts for that. We can use facts. So let's keep it rolling. It's no surprise that I kind of started with this song first, and since I'm kind of finishing up a video about it, it's really since it kind of ties into the tattoo that I have. Of course, I've been kind of going through some of the Kiss collection of songs, and of course, you know, I scroll down through this song, Christine 16, and I'm not gonna lie, I was kind of hesitant trying to look up the history behind this song, or at least how it came to be, and at least giving the reputation some of the band members. So we're starting straight through with this one. I first heard this song when I was about 10, maybe 11, and of course I didn't even bat an eye. We're near in this case. Of course, as I got older, I want to say maybe late high school, I finally realized, what the fuck? Like some of the other songs here, I was anticipating to get Salty looking this one up. However, yet I'm glad I started with this one because I'm not as salty anymore. I don't know, that sounds almost awful, but let me explain. Let me get there. At first, no shocker, the bassist Gene Simmons wrote the song. Christine 16 is from the Love Gun album recorded in 1977 and released June of that year. This song was controversial the moment it was ready for the airwaves. One thing that I didn't know, or may have forgotten, really, it's been a long time since I looked up a lot of Kiss shit. Radio stations would either flat out refuse to give the song any airtime or only played it past 7 p.m. Because of that, many were shocked that it even reached number 25 on the Billboard charts. So let's kind of dive in a little closer into how Gene Simmons got the inspiration for this song. So I was reading an article, and I'll put the links that I've used down in the description box below. Speaking about the article and the nature of the articles and interviews and so forth, and things being taken also from like artist biographies or autobiographies, it's a lot of he said, she said, they said, someone said. I haven't dug enough to like tie like physical evidence to something, so I just want to put that out there, especially when it comes to like this kind of contemporary age of like popular music. On top of that, there's more people involved with the manufacturing of music nowadays compared to like 200 years prior. So there's that in terms of like correspondence and like what influenced the song, what the commission was for what particular reason, right? So I'll just put that out there. So at least, again, that's what I saw as a kind of a trend as I was trying to look up a lot of these facts. So in an article that I read, I forgot to write it down if it was by Ultimate Guitar, but a lot of the articles that I found were. Um, but again, I'll put it down in the description box below. But apparently the story was is that after the Destroyer album, um, they were just going back and forth on new material, and usually with a lot of that, it's with them fucking around, just them being them. Um, in terms of like what could be catchy and what really inspires them at the moment. So apparently, as they were discussing going towards into the Love Gun album or just the concept of it, um, Paul like kind of gave a jab at Gene, saying like, "Hey, all you write is like monster songs, like God of Thunder," and then Gene jabbed back, and then at least quoting from the article there, apparently Gene said, "Oh yeah, all you ever write are teenage girly songs like Christine 16," and as soon as I heard myself say that, I quickly wrote it. I kind of had to like swallow it first. That might be the wrong term. Had to like let it marinate for a second on like the way Gene responded, because I kind of took it two ways. So I had to read it a couple times. And not only that, I also had to look at earlier in the discography up until Love Gun to see like the trend of the songs that Paul wrote, because I was starting to get a little uncomfortable, right? So at least looking back at the songs, it's usually like lusty type of songs, right? Kind of almost happy love songs too, right? And but had to review the lyrics, make sure there wasn't any mention of like young girls, make sure like Christine 16 was just that one, not that they had like a history of doing it. At least then I noticed, okay, so in other words, if it wasn't for like the rock behind Paul's lyrics, they're love songs and of like this constant love as if like back in his teenage years. So at least that like almost forbidding E type of love, or the love that got away, that makes sense now, and that's what Gene was trying to say. But he was still calling him a pervert. The fact that, well, at least the way I'm understanding it, that his like artistic mindset hasn't evolved just yet to kind of move on from like other type of like love topics. So I get it. That made me feel a little better, but at the same time, the dark it's a real dark joke, because he's calling Paul a pervert, even though that's the pot calling the kettle black. Because at least Gene Simmons infamously known for like sleeping with like over 1,000 women or something like that, whatever the count is now. Long story short, it's just a really dark freaking joke. Now, so them as artists, right? Um, so it's a fine teeter totter balance on what you would do with that. Now you kind of have to look at the business aspect, and it's also for the time of them, they're already kind of like deemed as this demonic satanic band, right? And this would just add more fuel to the fire. So given the branding that they already had, it was like that's why I think didn't make it super outrageous. It was almost like okay, more it. So in other words, it just kind of seemed like a PR stunt, really, with this song. And the fact that it was Jane making fun of Paul at the same time, and it made it to number 25 for the Billboard 100 for that year. I didn't look up for how many weeks, but I mean, and fucking Ace on that solo. Okay. Last wrapping thoughts of this song. Because this I didn't know, and I will link that version down in the description box as well. So apparently, the original demo of the song was recorded with Alex and Eddie Van Halen, and I almost didn't want to believe it, but it timeline wise it all tracks, because I want to say, was it 1978, 79 that the first Van Halen album came out? And also, 95% certain that Van Halen was discovered by Gene and Paul. I want to say mainly Gene, but I know they were discovered by a couple members of Kiss. So it all tracks. It kind of all makes sense. And I listened to it. I had to listen to it a couple times because other than style, I want to like describe a little more on the like key differences that I was like able to hear between the two ways it was played. Obviously, with the version that we have now, or at least the recorded on the Love Gun album, with Ace's stuff a little bit cleaner. Um, and it's a little bit cleaner. And on top of that, uh, the solo that supposedly was told to Ace to replicate is very, very similar. But there was something else besides like the cleaner texture that it had compared to Eddie's. And it's Ace's version is actually more harmonic to the chord progression of the solo, while Eddie's is actually a bit more melodic and he uses fourths and fifths. Compared to Ace, who uses mostly thirds and fifths. For those who are not musicians out there, I'm sorry if that means quite diddly to you, but it's just basically the use of intervals between on their solos, really.
Hello, this is Editing Fabi here, and there's one more thing I wanted to add, and this also comes from ultimateguitar.com. The article is actually referring to an interview with Gene Simmons and artist on record starting Adika Live, and you can check out the YouTube video. I will also link it down below. And according to Gene, when he asked Ace to replicate the solo from the demo that featured Eddie and Alex Van Halen, according to Gene, Ace was really pissed. And actually, let me read that part here. I did demos with Alex and Eddie Van Halen, actually. You can Google and schmoogle it. And the guitar solo in Christine 16, note for note, I had Ace learn that solo and he was furious. I want to write my own solo. Yeah, but it's not as good. Eddie's got a better one. And to this day, those notes was Eddie's note for note solo. That may have been what Gene asked, but that's not what we got. As I clearly depicted the kind of key differences between both solos. It's actually really peculiar that we have this demo to begin with, but it almost makes sense given the timeline in the late 70s with Kiss, since they were already starting to have some tensions between the band in terms of the artistic direction. And because of that, it could be why the solo that Ace replicated is not exactly the same. It's very similar, but it's not the same. If Ace was really upset about the decision on him having to copy the material from Eddie, that would make sense to why the solos are slightly different. Lastly, from reading the comments on the article about the interview, some speculate that that story could have just been fabricated just to get a response from Ace and just kind of put Kiss in the headlines again. Quite possible. And again, those are other people's speculations. Let me know if you agree with their ideas, and we're going to head back to the video.
Other than the just their general style. Also, you can also hear in Aces, he's like more of a true like blues guitarist anyway, compared to Eddie, who actually had classical training. Yes, pretty sure that's right. If I'm wrong, I will pop it up into here. But I'm pretty sure Eddie was classically trained. I'm pretty because he started on piano. If I have to correct myself, I'll put it. Then it pops up here somewhere. All right, so that's with that song. Again, and I learned so many things, and almost hate calling myself in the Kiss Army now because I didn't know those couple things. But let's move on to the next terrible song. They're going a year older. 17 by Winger. I didn't know where to start with. So let me just start with like the basic basic facts of this song. The song is performed and written by Winger from their self-titled album released on August 1988. Supposedly, the sales from the album right after release were stale, and by stroke of luck, and this is how a lot of albums made any sales, was made through MTV. As a matter of fact, it because of MTV. Now, a little sidetrack. Guns N' Roses' "Sweet Child of Mine" is literally what made people go buy "Appetite for Destruction." But if it wasn't for MTV, we would probably not have heard Guns N' Roses at all. They probably just faded away like kind of LA Guns did. The same could have been for this song had it not been aired on a Sunday at 1:55 in the morning, and from there it took off and made it to Billboard's on number 26 in the charts. I feel like this is one of the worst lines in the song, and it's Daddy says she's too young, but she's old enough for me. And I mean, the entire song is terrible as it is. Um, I will go back in terms of like where we are in society, but we'll touch that in a second. But yes, it was a different time. We'll get there in a minute. In recent years, the band actually has been defending themselves on this song in a couple of ways. One of them, I really don't like this excuse. And again, this is how it kind of ties in. It was a different time. So, according to the band, they defend themselves that they didn't feel like or they didn't know that 17 was considered underage. Right? And even when and these songs have been around even 20, 30 years before that. So, in terms of like, because there's been so many songs like this, I know saying it was a different time is a cop out, but it's kind of true. The politics were different, the people's mentality, education, the livelihoods of people, the use of drugs, if drugs available then, right? What was in the pop culture? Everything was a lot different. Even back then, 40, 50 years ago, people would marry young. And that's why, like, when it comes to like the age of consent in a lot of these states, seem kind of wishy-washy concerning. But no, just because we have those laws in place doesn't mean we can improve and be better and protect minors. We just have to look at this time with different glasses. We can still criticize and say that it's wrong, but ultimately, there's like today's now we can't do from the past. We can only learn from it. Other instance that been like this was like just as cringy was I was trying to finalize on a topic for a term paper in my undergrad music history class. And I particularly took interest in exotic opera. So this is towards the end of the 19th century. And one that kind of took interest was called The Mikado by Gilbert and Sullivan. I wish I should have brushed up on the general history of it first before watching the entire thing to get the sense what the opera was about. And the only reason I'm saying is that the version that I saw was a BBC production in 1960 something, 63, 66. And so again, right, this is modernized looking to something 60 years ago. I gasped so hard when I noticed the yellow phase because Mikado is it's supposed to take place in Japan and oh man, I already forgot most of the plot, but it's about a girl trying to marry him but not marrying this person. It's a comic opera too, and I think because it was like kind of like mixed identity. If you're interested, I'll put it down below, or the BBC production. But like after like taking my jaw off the floor. Now looking back then, like 60 years ago, were there many and those of like Asian descent who were opera singers? And were they available? Chances are probably not. So this is all 1960s. So this is about like almost like 50, 70 years when it was first, it was towards the end of the 19th century. I can't remember the exact year. But was, I want to say between 50 and 70 years when the BBC production was made. So even the yellow face should have been bad, but they did it anyway. Um, but if I was looking into the glasses of back in the 1960s, the reaction would be completely different because they'd be like, "Oh, you're giving me the sense of me trying to make it authentic, or like give you the illusion, the fantasy of it." As terrible as that sounds, but it's like it's completing the picture, right? It's making it more realistic, um, more like kind of like the I want to say pageantry, more like the artistry behind it, right? They were really trying to like make the best that they can for what they could with the people that they had. I'm sure there may have been Asian opera singers at the time, but were they known? Who knows? Probably not. That's all I can say based on the times and the accessibility to music education. I finally read into what it took for the production of the Picado. And so this was around a time, right, when it's been only a couple decades since Japan officially opened its borders to the rest of the world because they were basically closed off. But then the samurai shogunate dismantled pretty much and power instilled back into the emperor. So they wanted to modernize, and that's how they opened their sales to the rest of the world. Now, the rest of the world, in places like England, they were and they were the only ones, but they were completely fascinated with Asia. And there was already a trend of like exotic operas at this time. Technically, Carmen would be one of them because it's supposed to be a kind of a like someone who's a gypsy, and there's a couple more, but can't think of them right now. And with the production, in terms of like the dress and like what the sets will look like, they actually consulted, if I remember this correctly, with Japanese artisans or like performers and whatnot. Go ahead and do the full production. And from the reading I remembered, they said that the volunteers, I don't think they got paid, but the people that helped out, like the Japanese people that helped out, they felt honored. It's like, oh wow, like you want to talk about our people and our customs. So that's kind of how it was looked at then, and it was like kind of symbolized, and it's like, hey, the world's like kind of getting bigger but smaller, and there's so much out there. All these like the costuming and just being exposed to a new culture. So that's how it was looked at the time. And of course, nowadays when you look at it, it's appropriation, the nuances of the characters, the racism. It's like it's absolutely horrible when you look at it in today's perspective. Um, but just how times have changed. Anyway, I don't think that opera has been played any time recently, and how it would have. And, I'm still glad I wrote that paper though. In terms of different times, now here's another argument that at least I kind of sided with the band. This was actually taken. This quote's actually taken by the lead singer, Kip Winger. At least this is what he said. I mean, Kiss does Christine 16. I'm just saying, people are like, oh wow, how dare you sing this song? I'm like, it's a pop song, man. It was just a fun pop song. I stole the lyric from Kingdom Come. They had a song in their album called 17. I was writing the song and I was out of ideas. That I completely understand, especially as an artist, and because you kind of get stuck. You want to stand out, right? And you're like, I need to create something original, but then when you get too fixated on it, you create nothing. Like nothing will come out because like everything has already been done. Then, but then at the same time, and this is how a lot of catchy songs get made, you steal an idea from someone else and you just reformulate it, right? How are you going to make it different? And this is exactly what Winger did. Um, and I totally get it. For example, he got inspired. No, actually, you haven't heard the song, or at least uh, from Kingdom Come. And I'm not. I don't think I've heard of it. And he's right. That he shouldn't be targeted so hardcore when there was other bands that did worse, a lot worse. And I'm actually a little afraid to talk about the song, but I'm just gonna put the facts out there and just that. The third thing was that apparently, and I can't remember if it was the bassist or the drummer of Winger, but Red Beach said that, and I'm paraphrasing here, it was their producer who added that line, that line that's so terrible. That Daddy says she's too young, but she's old enough for me. So apparently that was shoved into by the producer. Now, again, I kind of understand this, right? Because it's like, hey, you just got signed on. That's your producer, and producer makes the money, and you're kind of afraid of the producers. So if you want to make sure your project actually goes to finish the end, and so you can get your money cut too, and avoid getting blacklisted in the business, you might as well listen to your producer. Now, obviously, I wasn't there. If there was like a fight put on, be like, hey, well, we change it up, this and that, or again, that same PR tactic that Kiss did for Christine 16, or at least Nugent and whatnot, to make that song go through. I understand the powerlessness to it, but I hope they kind of put up a fight. But again, money talks. I guess the song did help them out, and it didn't at the same time. But it was, and again, it was kind of a desperate plea to make it into the business. And in a way that kind of made it super late, because the album was released in '88, and by like '90, all of hair metal just crashed with the Seattle sound that was coming up. So yeah, so that was probably they're like completely out of ideas and just taking a shot in the dark. But yeah, the shot didn't land very well. So the next song, changing gears slightly, but it's just as terrible. And this is the one that I kind of had to correct myself on. Another song that didn't age very well is Mr. Brownstone. From Guns N' Roses' Appetite for Destruction, was released in 1987. I originally thought that this song was written by Axl, and I can't remember like what documentary, what Behind the Music, whatever I saw, whatnot, maybe false memory, but I remember that someone said that that Axl wrote this song, but that's not true. It was Izzy and Slash who wrote the song, and apparently started with a little piece of paper and or like on a trash bag or something, and they kind of went off from there. They were just writing their feelings on their hair addictions that they had during that time in the '80s. Then why did I remember that incorrectly? Axl kind of almost kind of being racist behind it, because I just kind of remember those key words. I'm not putting words in Axl's mouth or anything. This is from me pseudo guess remembering from the documentary that I watched. I think what I guess I need to correct my memory on is that Axl used this song against them. Because there's a point in time that the band just could not perform. And this is from apparently a canceled show. Basically, the way that Axl kind of used this song against them is that he was just hardcore criticizing the drug use, because like the band just could not hold itself together anymore. and apparently in a show in LA, 1989, at the LA Memorial Coliseum. And this is from the LA Times. The singer, who had complained during Wednesday's show about excessive drug use in the group, was greeted by a roar from an estimated 72,000 fans when he stepped into the spotlight Thursday after an anti-drug monologue led by lead guitarist Slash. Um, and I'm just kind of paraphrasing on some things that Axel said. But he was like, yeah, he was sick and tired of his friends dying. What they finally got themselves in, it's just gone too difficult. And basically, the band was in two different directions. One wanted to move forward artistically on the music, and one's had really bad drug problems. I thought Axel had drug problems too, but I'm pretty sure it was mostly alcohol. If I remember that correctly. But they all had substance use problems, but like it was the heroin that really like destroyed them. Well, I mean, it would destroy anybody, but in terms of like Guns N' Roses. Now I'm glad that was clarified in Fundamental Archives that Axel did not write this song, but was being a dickhole and using it against them. But uh, his frustrations are also understandable. Which kind of looking back and like kind of the reputation that Axel had for like not going on stage on time, this and that, and like not being hyper aggressive, kind of makes sense now because he's not in the band creative environment that he wants to be. So he like let a lot of aggression, I guess. And again, I wasn't there. So Lisa, last couple tidbits with his song. It was Guns N' Roses' first international single. And yeah, the more they played this song, it just kind of soured among the members, particularly with Axel and Slash. So his next song. This next artist. Please, no hate. No hate to me. I'm just bringing up the my own opinions, right? Just 5 random songs that I think are terrible, or this their conception of it is terrible. This one, I'm gonna go right to it because this one's just disgusting. Um, this one's called Jailbait by Ted Nugent. I think by the name alone wouldn't surprise anybody. So, and even to this day, he has a lot of fans. Okay, if they're able to separate that with the individual, sure, that's you do you, you do you. But this still doesn't take away that the person that wrote this and this person in general is terrible. How, but we'll live. So at least his image back in the 70s, obviously was all on purpose for that shock value. But this was a different type of shock rock that Ted Nugent was focusing on. Because by Ted Nugent, shock rock wasn't new already. Technically, kind of started with Alice Cooper when he had like he still does the whole Betty Davis inspired like running makeup and like the straight jackets, the whole theatrics, right? Or at least what they call like, well, if you go to the movies to watch horror films, why can't you watch horror music? So that's kind of the whole idea that they had. Similar with Kiss, right? The whole extravagance, and just making it big, and like the smoking guitars, flying through the stage, and the explosions breathing fire, right? The whole theatrics, right? Something like you didn't really see at the time with rock. And Ted Nugent did that, but not in terms of the theatrical way, more as in of a messy type of person type of way. Or as he would tell himself like redneck, right? Like a redneck rocker or something like that. I can't remember like how like it was. He would dub himself. it's based most on behavior of him as a person rather than what was going on the stage. And that's what to me just speaks a lot about Ted, and also the his own personal history and his ideas and the shit that he's used. But anyway, so that's kind of the whole kind of big picture with Ted Nugent. Jailbait is from the album Intensities in 10 Cities. It was recorded in 1980 and it was released on March 2nd of 1981. The year that it was written, because I already knew like some key facts from Ted Nugent and past relationships, that I needed to connect a couple things. So infamously, Ted Nugent had a relationship with then 17-year-old Pele Massa. I'm not sure how long the relationship went for, but they were in a relationship from 1978. But it didn't last very long. And apparently, there's like things weren't really proven in terms of like he was trying to get custody of her, or an alleged somebody else was underage, so they can get married or live together or whatnot. But the general story, at least with Pele, was that her parents approved, were okay with it. I don't think they were, but that's not for me to say. But this also is not the first time that parents were also groomed by someone of like who were higher in power, right? At least monetarily wise. It happened. At least someone in the Yankees from the 1980 Yankees did it. There was a actually watched a documentary on on the Brooklyn Zoo, as they called it. It was interesting. It's all bad. um, Another thing I also found peculiar with Ted Nugent was that, um, especially how all of that has resurfaced tenfold in the hypercriticism of him, justifiably so, but don't get mad at me. I noticed that he has written books, but not necessarily like about him, like a biography, like all the shit. It's like there's a couple haunting books or like something like that, and but yeah, there's no like true like autobiography. For example, I have one right here from Gene Simmons. I actually pulled it up so I can kind of read the little snippet on early days of Kiss, and he said some shady shit in there, but it's I'll get to that in the Ace video. Well, to me, that says that he might have something to hide, or like, wouldn't you want to set the record straight that it was like all like a PR stunt? And I don't, yet like his current persona now, this like hyper conservative MAGA individual, like to me, it almost seems like he's intentionally scrubbing the past for that. And I'm fidgeting with my hair. But that's just a speculation. Obviously, I have no proof of this, but that's I'm kind of making sense for it. Like he hasn't like wrote his side of the crazy 70s, if he remembers it, because coke was a thing, hardcore alcohol consumption was a thing. Or at least something that rockers kind of celebrated. Fuck, I mean, Michael Anthony from Van Halen had a base of Jack Daniels, which I think is cool, but that's besides the point. But oh, the fact that me looking more into this got worse. So I'll let you all do the reading. I'll put the links below. But apparently, Courtney Love came out about 2 or 3 times against allegations of sexual assault against Ted Nugent when she was a minor, and Oh, at first I was like trying to make sense of it. At first I was like, is she really that old? Um, but she was like, she would have been like 14, between 14, 16, around 1978 or like late 70s concert that apparently she went to. And I did learn quite a bit of Courtney Love. I didn't know she went to college. Um, and or the fact that she actually was kind of well connected in the music business from her parents, or at least was exposed to. How about that? She had a lot of exposure to that lifestyle, and in turn, at least mainly exposure to substance abuse. Um, and because yeah, I asked her like, how the hell she even end up in that concert, particularly backstage. But yeah, the rest I'm not really comfortable talking about. You can read it down below, but fuck. And then this is from something I read on Reddit that apparently um, there's been like really good scrubbing on a lot of Ted Nugent's past too. That's not available. I guess. I mean, I'm not too sure on that, but that was mentioned out there. I mean, it kind of makes sense given the current like face that he has now, but which it doesn't. It does not make sense to me, especially those who were like hardcore anti-establishment and now they're super hyper conservative. I mean, it does make sense because they're complete assholes, but because again, the whole scrubbing past thing, as I think, my opinion, what I think they're doing, but again, I have no proof of this. But if you thought that one line that she's well enough for me from the lyric from the Winger song was bad, um, the part where it says, "Well, I don't care if you're just 13. You look too good to be true. I just know what you're probably clean. Jailbait. You look fine, fine, fine. It's quite alright. I asked your mama. Wait a minute, officer. Don't put those handcuffs on me. Put them on her, and I'll share her with you." Like, there's something really fucked up to even inspire that. Especially for had he not had the history that he already had by then, it just makes it so. Okay, I need to move on from this song. It's all sorts of fucked. The last song I have for you here, "Don't Stand So Close to Me" by The Police. It was released in September of 1980 from the album Zenyatta Mondata. It reached number one in the UK charts and number 10 in the US side. So apparently, from an interview, and this is actually I got the links from Ultimate Guitar. Sting said that well, actually, let's read the back. One thing I learned was that Sting, along with another member of the band, were teachers. I didn't check how long Sting was in the teaching profession, but at least he completed the student teaching. And apparently, in the 1981 book La Historia Bandido, he said that he wanted to write a song about sexuality in the classroom. He also said, "I've done teaching practice at secondary schools and been through the business of having 15-year-old girls fancying me, and me really fancying them. How I kept my hands off of them, I don't know." You could have avoided that last line. You could also said, uh, "I was the young teacher. The girls came up to me and they were flirty, uh, and I just had to keep it straight, keep it professional, because that's my job." And like, if you kind of cleaned up that bit, it wouldn't have sounded as bad. But then it gets a little worse. Apparently, one of Sting's favorite novels is Lolita by Vladimir Nabokov. And that's also where he kind of got the inspiration for the song. And I haven't read the book. A little like summary of it is basically a student teacher relationship or someone, you know, trying to lust over. Um, oh, it's so bad. Oh, it's also bad that because they knew that their audience was teenage girls, and I, well, from experience, literally from work experience, they wanted to like reach that particular audience with this song. The music industry complex. Oh my god! Again, kind of taking that shock value and the concept of the song is not necessarily that terrible if you're talking about it a third person perspective, like just having the book as fucked up inspiration and kind of saying that way, but you wrote a song about it. Um, Instead of saying, "Hey, this also happened to me too." Studying music really has ruined music for me, but at the same time, I kind of love digging information about it. I hope this video is not too long. And for those who want to continue reading, I'll have them down below. I just want to engage a conversation. I don't want to entice a riot down there. Please, please don't. But I might do a couple other songs that haven't aged for like other reasons too. A couple of honorable mentions. There's such thing. I Want Candy, which is a cover from his 60s song, but I have more of a problem on the cover of it. Most it's because of the music video, really. Anyway, another honorable mention is Our Lips Are Sealed by the Go-Go's. I do want to do this on a video only because the whole like the stereotype of like the rock star, it was very male oriented, while like us like women did not belong to that like that party club group, right? Or it was a boys club, in other words. Yeah, the image that the Go-Go's had was not what they did backstage. So I just it was years past. I remember watching Behind the Music, and it was really interesting. So that's kind of how that song came up to mind. And the other one, which is also a cover, is Joan Jett's "I Love Rock and Roll," and supposedly, and I remember hearing this from someone in person, but Joan Jett doesn't really play this song in her shows anymore. I'm not sure. I would have known had I made it to that first half of the concert. I was only able to get up there to watch the second half of Def Leppard and Motley Crue. Really bummed out that I missed Poison, but oh well. But yeah, apparently she doesn't like again for she doesn't perform that song because of that underage tied to it. Which I didn't know because I actually don't care much for Joan Jett's music. I respect her for her impact in music at the time, but I don't really care for punk. That's the general thing with me. I made it through it. This is actually kind of like it was hard to film because I just want to make sure I'm articulating ideas well. But yeah, man, how times changed, and music really tells us that, and that's kind of what I love about music. I'm such a nerd that I study it. I really want to go back for my doctorates at some point. Not right now, because at least with the weird health, whatever, neurosurgeons will figure out. Any other songs I should cover? I was my main scope is gonna be kind of rock metal oriented. Those, not wearing a Judas Priest shirt for nothing. But let me know what other songs have aged terribly, like milk. I'll put them down in the comments. I know, like, the theme and the topics of this video may have been really touchy, but at least for me, if you could put a like for me, thank you. I would love that. We're really close to 20 subscribers here, and I would love to do another pet review, which will be coming up soon, soon. I'm also close to 50 followers over on Twitch. I've been doing quite a bit of Pokemon and Star Trek Online over there, so feel free to check that out. My socials will be popping up here any moment. Follow me on Instagram as well. Keep an eye for my next videos. A little sneak peek. I think I already know that the next discontinued diaries I'm going to do, and it's going to be the Smashbox eye primer. They reformulated it. They changed it. The reviews, the new reviews on that one, is kind of the reason why it inspired me to make a video. Thank you all so much, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Bye.